Hello there and welcome to Along the Towpath. Today it is my absolute pleasure to be joined by Heather Staff from Street Group. Heather's journey with her brother Tom from concept through to creation of all the things that are in the Street Group is just simply fascinating. Today we really get under the skin of that, but we also talk about Heather's personal journey. Hope you enjoy the next 40 minutes or so. Thank you for making the long journey down from Manchester.
You're welcome.
And joining us on this glorious day in spring.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, why don't you just give us a brief, who are you? What's your name? Where do you come from?
So I'm Heather. I'm one of two co-founders of Street Group. So for those that don't know our product, we have street.co.uk, which is the CRM, and Spectre, which is the marketing tool. Mm-hmm. Marketing tools, I should say now. It does multiple things.
There's plenty of them.
Yeah. So we founded the business 9 years ago. We're based up in Manchester. Mm-hmm. So proptech business with around 175 people.
175, goodness me, wow. And so you started as just Spectre? Or was
started as just Spectre, yeah.
Okay,
and
so
my brother
just Spectre, but...
Yeah, my brother's the other co-founder,
mm-hmm.
and he has to take the credit for that.
Okay.
He had the idea for Spectre when he did some consulting actually for my dad's business, because my dad is still an estate agent, still has his business.
In Manchester?
In Manchester,
Yep.
Yeah. And Tom ended up, so my dad asked him to go in and have a look at whether they could adopt more tech to make them more efficient, and Tom ended up spending quite a few years there.
Okay, so really immersed himself in the agency.
Oh God, yeah.
Selling houses or just trying to behind the scenes?
Everything.
Okay.
Yeah, he did everything. He wasn't intending to spend so long there, but to be honest,
isn't that what happens with estate agents?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what happens.
Or people in the industry.
Yeah, we'd very much grown up with it, me and Tom. So our mum also had an estate agency. She sold that and she's now retired. Yeah, auntie and uncle were estate agents.
Oh my goodness me! Wow.
Yeah, very much in the
dynasty territory. That was, isn't it? Yeah.
But yeah, so when Tom was working with my dad,
mm-hmm.
he saw what they were doing from a marketing perspective and just thought there was a huge opportunity to automate it.
Wow.
So he built the first version of Spectre himself because he's a software engineer.
Wow.
And yeah, the rest is history. Yeah.
Goodness me. So talk us through, you say Spectre then, obviously as a group you've got the CRM and you've got the marketing tools. Just very briefly for those the very few that don't know, Spectre is a suite of marketing tools. What does that look like?
So where we started as originally just a sales direct mail prospecting tool, it's now evolved so we have sales direct mail, lettings direct mail, email marketing, social media and digital property reports. And what's really nice about it now is that they all feed into each other. So for example, let's take sales direct mail prospecting. You might send a sold in your area postcard. Well, you will know this yourself. You could send a sold in your area postcard with a QR code on it, say, get your personal property report here, to somebody you don't know their name, but obviously you know where they live. The beauty of estate agency is you can market to those people. You might set a price band or propensity to sell limit on that, so you're optimising your marketing spend through Spectre. They scan the QR code, they input their details to get their beautifully branded property report. You then are turning somebody you didn't know into somebody that you've then got their email address, you know the property that they're in, and then you can nurture them through Spectre email marketing, and all of that can be completely automated.
So it's a full ecosystem rather than,
Absolutely.
And I think one thing that we've talked about before, I know, is that it's not to go too heavy on a pitch, but it's almost like it's a data set that's being used for marketing rather than a data set that just sits there that people can use it for marketing. It's actually a marketing tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than just something that, we got that data, let's extract it and do something with it.
Yeah, I think with estate agencies moved on, and from a marketing perspective, we're a lot more sophisticated now in who you market to, what you say, and tailoring it to, exactly who you want to be targeting and saying the right things at the right time.
So that you're saying we're a lot more sophisticated now. What do you mean by that?
I think if you go back quite a few years, agents just used to blanket drop areas and hope for the best. Whereas now, I think with things like the AI inspector that predicts which properties are going to come to the market, you can get a lot more sophisticated. So for example, the agents that use Spectre's AI propensity to sell get a 340% uplift in ROI versus those that don't. So just straight off the bat, you could send a third less marketing material, spend a third less, and get exactly the same number of instructions as your competitor next door. Or to put it another way, you could spend exactly the same amount and get 3 times as many instructions back, which I don't think you can ignore the differences in ROI now.
So I think what I want to drill down on there is the AI side of things. That's something I'm really interested in talking about. So now I'm very aware that this is a bit like, we've laughed about this before, this sort of KFC coating on a piece of chicken. You know what it is roughly, but no one's going to really tell you what it is. And I'm very aware of the fact that you're not going to give away all your secrets, because that's for you guys, isn't it? How does it work? So propensity to sell. Now, obviously that's the secret sauce, isn't it? That's what everybody wants to know, is how do we get through the doorways and the letterboxes of people that are the most likely to say, yes, I want you to come around and do evaluation and go on to instruct them. AI that sits behind all of that, I want to go down a bit of a rabbit hole on that, because there's lots of people talking about AI, and I know that you and Tom are really, really into it, and really, we've discussed it at length before. What's the opportunities or the threats for AI for a estate agency?
I think it's both an opportunity and a threat, to be honest
Morning.
with you. I think the opportunities are growing and are enormous to take away some of the manual admin work at the very least.
Yes.
And I think a lot of agents, we're seeing it right now, are adopting that AI technology on 2 fronts. So let's take Spectre first of all. Like I just said, you've got an agent who's using overlays getting 340% more ROI than the agent that's not. Over time, that's a significant either saving or increased amount of instructions. That's just one example. If you take the AI in Street, it's threaded throughout Street. So the efficiencies that that's driving in terms of writing emails with AI in Street, training on your tone of voice, writing property descriptions trained on your tone of voice. The AI that, as you will know, in terms of your vendor care. So when you pull up a property you got for sale, it just aggregates all the available information, summarises all the viewing.
So it's doing the heavy lifting, it's doing the £10 tasks.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of heavy lifting, and that's only going to carry on. So where I say it's a threat is that the agents who aren't adopting it at the moment can probably get away with it for a while, but fundamentally are going to become less and less and less competitive versus those that are adopting it. And on the exact inverse of that is it's a huge opportunity for those agents who are willing to embrace it, try it.
So for those who are, the threat is to only those who are not perhaps embracing it properly. But then I suppose it raises the question. Then I've got somebody who's a cynic in my head, sat at the back going, well, hang on a minute. So it's removing £10 tasks and it's enabling people to be more efficient and be a little bit more. I suppose efficient in how they work on every level, really. But at the same time, is that not taking jobs to do the old adage of, well, it's just here to take our jobs and all the rest of it? Because there are jobs which are reliant on those tools or those tasks that AI can now do, or does it elevate and enable people who are going to be more sharp, more at the cutting edge?
I think it will take jobs. I think that's a natural thing that's going to happen. Move out of the way of this mic.
Sorry.
I think that will happen, but actually if you're a business that's growing, I think it's an opportunity for you where previously you might have had to hire in direct proportion to your growth. I think what we will see with the adoption of AI is actually you'll think twice about having to hire a person when actually technology might be able to do a decent chunk of that role.
So rather than replacing people, it enables you to be more streamlined in terms of what people can do within the office.
Yeah, and I think what I think we'll see as this progresses is we'll get more highly skilled agents doing the higher value work, the things that I think we're a little way off with AI, things like negotiating, things like empathy, face-to-face communication, all of that is where I think the jobs in a estate agency will go. And actually, the things that AI is going to replace, I would argue, are not the appealing things that estate agents dream about doing on a day-to-day basis anyway. You don't dream of being an estate agent.
What do we dream about?
I think there's some glamorous parts of estate agency and actual, fun parts of the job. Negotiating deals and doing all of that is fun. What you don't want to do is come in on a Monday morning to 55 lettings inquiries that you have to manually respond to. Nobody thinks, I can't wait to get in tomorrow morning to deal with all those right move inquiries. that's where I think we will see a lot of that being automated, and then you will probably need fewer people per transaction or fewer people per managed property. And you can provide a better service because you'll have more highly skilled individuals.
And I
doing
suppose
all
that's the key, isn't it? Because at the moment we've got this situation where national insurance and all our overheads are just through the roof. And, whether we talk about from portals to the government to utility companies, we're being squeezed at every level in terms of our profitability because everybody wants a slice of what we're up to. So the only way to do it is to make sure we continue to do the same thing more efficiently and more, at lower cost.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it this week, that CEO of Shopify came out and said, an internal memo, that if anybody in any department in Shopify wants to hire, they have to prove that that job can't be done with AI before they will put that job role live.
Wow, that's quite a step, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge. And I think, people are getting more expensive. And people also make mistakes. So if technology can do it, there's a strong argument to use tech to do it.
Yeah, and I suppose it's really how, as business owners then, estate agency business owners, I suppose we have a responsibility to critically analyse our business and say, right, what are we overspending on in terms of resourcing? Because that could be taken care of by AI, or it could be either outsourced or done something in that sense. Because I once heard of a story of somebody I know who put themselves into debt to ensure they could continue paying their staff in the hope that the market would turn around, and then eventually that business went under. And it was a tragic story because the motivation of the individual was right because he wanted to protect his team, but at the same time, what do you cut first? There's always that. I can't remember who it was. I think Chris Watkins has mentioned it on a couple of occasions. What do you cut first? The staff costs, or do you cut the marketing costs? Or because we're all under pressure in lots of different ways as agency owners at the moment. But I suppose what you're suggesting is that AI and the tools that are available to us give us an opportunity or an avenue to review those costs.
Yeah, I think every estate agency owner needs to almost look at it as part of their job to be reviewing and looking at the things that are coming out from a tech perspective and can they be implemented. Because I think the thing with estate agency is it's cyclical, and looking forward is going to be the same as looking back, in that there's always going to be boom times and not so boom times. One thing that's very difficult to flex is people, but you can flex technology up and down with the market.
Okay, so that's quite interesting then. So let's talk about you, because I want to sort of loop round on a topic here. So before we get knocked into the canal by a cyclist, let's just discuss then. You were surrounded by estate agents.
Yes,
growing
very
up.
much so.
Okay, no problem. So you were surrounded by estate agents growing up.
Yep.
And the first thing you did is you looked around you and you thought, I'm going to be an accountant. So what was it that horrified you so much that not only did you not go into estate agency, you then become a supplier to the estate agency industry? You weren't compelled to become an estate agent yourself. Why was that?
Very good question. I also didn't plan on becoming an accountant, just for the record. That just sort of happened at the end of university. When you get pushed into graduate schemes, that's genuinely the truth. I did not dream of becoming a chartered accountant.
But you didn't just become an accountant. You went to KPMG. You didn't just. There's no underachieving going on there. There's straight for the good stuff.
Yeah, well, to be honest, my mum and dad worked extremely hard growing up, and I saw that firsthand. I was under my mum's desk when I was 2 weeks old, and
Wow.
I saw the sort of blood, sweat and tears that they put into their respective businesses. So
It scarred you for life.
Yeah, probably. I think maybe the dream was actually we should be making estate agents' lives easier with tech rather than going into estate agent. No, I honestly fell into KPMG after university, and I ended up in restructuring, so helping businesses that were struggling return to profitability. Okay. And then I moved to global restructuring, which is down in London. So I did that for huge corporations around the world.
Fascinating.
And
that's really interesting.
It was really interesting, and I learned a lot.
I was going to say, amazing lessons you learned there.
But I'd always wanted to have my own business, so I was constantly trying to find something.
And I suppose so. It wasn't the estate agency that appealed to you; it was the entrepreneurship that appealed to you.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. And I think growing up with two entrepreneurs as parents, it's sort of in the blood. And Tom was exactly the same. So yeah, when I saw what Tom had built with Spectre, we went home on Christmas, I went to my mum's house and he showed me, and I just thought, obviously I had grown up and spent many, many summers in a estate agency. So I just thought that's going to
You've
be
got to do something
absolutely
with
huge.
that.
Yeah, and so I quit my
So how did
job.
that conversation take place then? So was it literally that Tom went, look what I've been building and what do you think?
Yeah.
And you just went, we need to do something with this? Or was it Tom's turned around and said, I've got this great idea for a business, do you want to come on board? How did that conversation take place?
Do you know what? I can't remember exactly how, but he built it, showed me, and then I think it was with my mum as well. It was a bit, my mum's, very much still very entrepreneurial, and she was like, you guys together, if you launch this properly, could make something huge. And so that was when it first came about, and I thought, actually, let's do it. I'd been looking for ages and
For something to
do,
get
and
excited
I was
about.
messing around with little businesses on the side.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas this one, I just thought that's going to be huge.
Go on, give us a couple of those little businesses on the side.
Oh God, no, it's so embarrassing.
Go on.
I set up a website called the Hen Bible because I was a bridesmaid quite a few times,
Okay.
and I found it really difficult organising hen
Yeah,
parties,
yeah.
coming up with ideas, finding out where we could.
Great
yeah,
idea.
so I got the henbible.co.uk.
I hope you've still got that.
No, I sold it for
Protected.
nothing. Yeah. So tried to do that. I was trying to desperately do things in my spare time whilst not compromising my career at KPMG. And then when I saw what Tom had built, I thought, actually, let's just do it. And actually, a lot of people were supportive. So my mum and dad were like, yeah, do it. Obviously,
So they saw
Oh,
what-
God, yeah. Whereas other people were a bit outside of the industry, were a bit like, it does what?
Yeah.
For who? You know,
Why is there a need for that?
why would you risk your career at
Yeah.
KPMG for that? But KPMG were great. They said, why don't you just take a career break, and if it doesn't work,
Oh, wow.
come back.
Well, that's great. Well, they showed they valued you. Then.
Yeah, they were great actually. Probably just because they thought it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So
Which is helpful and nice to stick one in the eye with it.
It was
Yeah,
great actually because
yeah.
a career break. I
Yeah.
still got my medical insurance, car allowance.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah,
Oh, fantastic.
So
Well, all the
this is great.
security and help you need then. That's great, isn't it?
But after 3 months, I rang them and I was like, honestly, thanks guys, but I'm not going to come back.
Wow. It was 3 months. So it was as soon as that, when you sat there and thought, do you know what, we've got something here.
Within 3 months, we knew. I mean, the first thing we did was we literally physically wrote letters to 30 agents in Greater Manchester to say, we've built this product, we've tested it in one agent, we know it works, do you want to trial it? And 7 came back, 7 out of 30, which is insane.
I'm talking of ROIs on direct mail.
And then originally we sold it exclusively to one agent per area, so there was a very quick take up and roll out basically of the product.
Yep.
So
Well, that's the shining example of going hyper-local, isn't it?
yeah,
That's how you drill down on your specific target market. And so you actually did it on behalf of your own product, which you're now doing for other agents through that product, through the product. So that's okay.
No, it's great.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So then I suppose really you went Manchester.
Yep.
And then you decided, well, do you know what? Let's do a little bit more, because you were based in London at the time.
Yeah, I was living in London at the time.
Okay.
I was living in London, Tom was in Manchester, and we thought originally when it was super small, I could just cover the south, he could cover the north.
Yep.
And then when it started to explode, we realised we needed to hire someone. So we had a decision to make, do we do London or Manchester? And thankfully we landed on Manchester, which I think is one of the best decisions we actually made. Just in terms of the talent in Manchester.
Yeah, the talent pool you were saying.
Oh yeah, it's brilliant. And costs are so much lower than basing yourself in London. So
Well, yes, the overheads are massively different, aren't they? I think we've all been to and spent time in London. So those of us who have realised the stark difference between the costs, haven't we?
Yeah.
So enter Catherine.
Pardon?
Enter Catherine, who's your employee number one.
I was like, how do you know Catherine?
Oh, because she's one of the reasons I'm with you, because she was the one that picked up the phone.
Amazing. So Catherine was our first recruit, and she was working for a client at the time, and she was the person that did Spectre for that client, quite a big agent in Manchester. And on the Brexit decision day,
Oh, wow.
she got made redundant because there was panic, and
Oh,
it was
goodness.
like last in, first out. So she rang us just to sort of politely let us know that she wasn't going to be the Spectre contact there anymore. And we were like, oh, why don't you
Why
come
don't
and
you hop
join
in
us?
and, well, if you clearly believe enough
Yeah.
to pick up the phone and say, I'm afraid I'm not, then
She
clearly there's
was brilliant.
enough for the
And
product.
She's been with us ever since. So she's now on the street sales
And
team.
very proudly announcing herself as employee number one as well.
Yeah,
Which is what I want to bring us to next, really, is your culture.
Yeah.
There's those who know, and those who know about the proptech world, and those who have a familiarity with Street Group are aware of the culture. But there's an awful lot of people who won't be. And we took a bit of a road trip to Manchester to see you a few weeks ago, and we were blown away by the welcome that we received. And genuinely, I'm not just blowing smoke here, genuinely it was fantastic. And what really took us by surprise was how there was it was palpable, you could sense it, you could almost touch it, the sense of pride that every single person we locked eyes with in that business was, they're not people just visiting an office, they're here visiting the company I work for, that I'm deeply proud of. How on earth have you managed to build a culture like that? Because that's different level, that's really something else. So in our industry, it's really difficult to get that because of the nature of how we build our businesses, and especially in estate agency itself. But proptech, I can imagine there's quite you got a lot of competition, haven't you, with Googles and the Metas and all this sort of stuff in terms of the talent that you're up against. But how have you managed to create that at Street Group?
That's a big question. I think me and Tom have been very deliberate about culture from very early on when we were very small.
Really conscious decision from the outset.
Yeah, because we read all the business books going, I'm sure a lot of business owners do, so you read about it, and we just thought, actually, it's very difficult to change direction on culture once you've set yourself in one direction. To change it is very, very hard. So we did spend a lot of time sort of thinking about what we were doing and implementing things from when we were actually a very small business. And I think some of those have paid off. But don't get me wrong, we've made massive mistakes along the way, typically in hiring. And I sort of think you have to
get the wrong people in.
Yeah. Every business must do this at some point. You have to go through the pain of a bad hire and learn from your own mistakes. But yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that we've done culture-wise that has shaped the direction. And one of the main things I would say is being extremely transparent with how we run the business, the decisions that we make, the numbers, everything is shared with everyone. There's nothing pretty much that's off limits.
So you decided really early on that culture was going to be important to you, and that it was all about vision and over communicating. So talk us through how you do that, because there is, it's very easy to say, well, over communicate, but how do you do that? What are the vehicles, what are the tools you use?
So I think as you grow as well with the business, it gets harder and harder. When you're small and you are speaking to everybody every day, it's actually quite easy. And I think in hindsight, COVID forced our hand a little bit with this, because all of a sudden, where we were all in the same room every day, when it's super easy, suddenly we were all at home going through one of the most challenging times for any business. And so, we use Slack. I absolutely love Slack. I almost can't imagine how we would run our business without Slack.
There are real believers in Slack, aren't there?
We're one of those. Everything's integrated to Slack as well. So anyway, I'm not selling Slack. But yeah, so we use Slack, and during COVID, me and Tom actually wrote to the whole company every day on Slack, just what's going on, the decisions that we were making, what we were thinking. We wrote a letter. This has all continued since COVID, but we write an annual letter to everybody reflecting on the year that's gone and what we want to achieve in the following year. Anything important, putting it down in writing, I actually think is better, because it can't be misconstrued or misremembered, or if they're telling somebody else, it's there in black and white. And then one of the things that we've done forever actually is we have an all hands every Friday where the whole company attends, and then people from the relevant departments give updates.
That's online?
Both. So we have it in the auditorium, so the people in the office are in person, and then we dial everybody else in. And then anybody who's got an update that the company should know or be aware of will give an update, so it tends to be team by team. And then we also allow people to ask me and Tom anonymous questions every week, so they can submit questions anonymously on Slido, and me and Tom will answer them.
On what, sorry?
Slido,
Slido.
sli.do.
Okay.
It's free, anyone can do it. And we answer those questions there, which I think actually has been really helpful, where somebody doesn't feel like they can ask something. They can always ask it anonymously and know.
Without either feeling like they look stupid or too controversial or risking their job, etc.
And then they know that me and Tom will always give them an honest answer in all hands, which I think is great, because sometimes there are things that people don't feel like they can ask. And they might be thinking, why have they done that? And actually we can just answer it and say, this is why we did it. And obviously every single decision that me and Tom make is in the business's best interest. There's nothing we've ever got to hide. So it's quite a good way. That's worked quite well.
Yeah, that's quite nice. It sort of creates a sense of Well, it's the emotional buy-in, isn't it? You know, they feel like they're intrinsically a part of the decision-making process, because whilst they may not have been there when the decision was being made, they then have a much better grasp of why the decision was made.
Yeah. And in terms of what you were saying before about the vision and how is everybody in the business so excited about what we're doing and where we're going, I think that's part of it, because they know what we're doing and where we're going and why we're going there.
Yeah.
And when you are like radically transparent like we are and we share everything, everybody knows what we're doing and they know how well we're doing. And it's exciting to be a part of, and they feel like they're on that journey and they know why they're on that journey, which I imagine if you aren't sharing that sort of stuff, it's very difficult to get people excited about what you're doing.
I was asked a question the other day about whether we are an agile business or a business that pivots. Do we make small decisions or do we make big, leaping, sweeping changes? And I suppose really this ultimately comes down to setting your vision in the first place, doesn't it? So you started with Spectre, and then you brought in a radical idea of a CRM.
Yeah.
So whose idea was that, and how did that come about?
It's a very good question. So Spectre, if you think about what Spectre did at the time, it's much broader now, but it was very niche and it was solving one very specific problem for estate agents at the time. Very early, we were trying to do things like integrate with CRMs, you know, go bigger, do bigger things.
Yeah.
And we were just getting no.
There was a lot of that at the time, wasn't there, if I remember right, yeah.
And then we were sort of had this view of the industry where we were in contact with thousands of agents and we were sitting with them all the time. And, you know, fundamentally, we talk about estate agency CRMs as CRMs, but really it's a lot more than that, because, you know, we have a CRM, it's HubSpot.
Yeah.
And yeah, our team will dip in and out of HubSpot, but we're not running our entire business from HubSpot.
Right.
Whereas estate agents are typically running their entire business on a piece of software. And you know, to be brutally honest, me and Tom were looking at it and saying, where's the innovation? And if you go back, you know, when we made the decision to start Building Street, which was 7-8 years ago, we were looking at where all the investment was going in our industry. And we could see it. I'm talking like the VC, PE level money, the millions.
So big money.
The big money. Where's it going? It was going into portals, which is fine, you know, that made sense. And then a lot of it was going into online agents. So online agents had the funds available to build good technology. Themselves,
they didn't need to rely on.
Yeah, and they were doing exactly that, and that was a big part of their pitch. And we were looking at it saying, hold on, what about the 95% of agents here?
Yeah.
Who's innovating for them? Who's building their technology? And we just couldn't see it, and we were waiting for this innovation to happen.
Wow.
And actually we thought, do you know what? If we genuinely think we can build something 10 times better than the next alternative, we should start building it, because we're uniquely positioned to do that. We've got great relationships with a lot of agents, and we've got the time.
You've got the trust.
We've got the trust, the reputation, the time to build what is a very, very big bit of kit now.
So you built it from scratch then. You didn't buy one and think, well, there's a platform, let's bolt things to it.
Absolutely
You completely started with a blank piece of paper and thought, right, what's the phrase? I think we throw it around our office sometimes, is if money was no object and you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do?
Yeah.
Is that how you approached it? Or did you sit and go, right, I've got a very clear idea of what good looks like and this is the feedback we've had. How did you approach that forming of the CRM?
So for us, I think a big thing when we built Street was the consumer experience in estate agency, and how do we help agents provide the modern consumer experience?
Okay, so you looked at it from from the vendors and the buyers rather than the actual estate agents themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Because our belief was, if we help our agents win, if we help our agents win, then we will win.
Yeah.
And our agents will win by offering a next level consumer experience to the competitor next door.
Yeah.
That was sort of our thesis. But also we saw a lot of efficiencies that could be driven by technology that just weren't being. So these agents had such higher costs than they needed to have, because they needed people to do this busy work that could be completely automated by tech. At the same time, we were of the very, very strong opinion that there were certain things that should absolutely not be automated and that should always be done by an agent.
Such as?
Like, for example, you probably know this, with certain online agents, if an applicant submits feedback, it goes straight to the vendor. We will absolutely not.
Dangerous ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Dangerous ground.
So
we've all been there. We've all felt it.
Yeah.
We've all been on the receiving end of that phone
exactly.
call. Yeah.
So the tech is there with Street. So we will automatically ask applicants for feedback, as you know.
Yep.
That will automatically come into you. But we wouldn't automatically.
So you're the
pass
gatekeeper of that information.
Exactly. You've
so
got
you
to be the gatekeeper. Because
soften it.
There's certain parts where agents add a lot of value, and you don't want technology to automate that away. But there's also a significant chunk of work that is not adding any value to your clients, slows the process down,
Yeah.
and creates a significant amount of cost for agents that just doesn't need to be there. And so our two sort of pillars with Street were massively reduced costs and huge efficiency gains, and enormous customer experience benefits that actually will help agents win more instructions, which it does.
Yeah.
And those two things, I think, actually, if you look at what matters most to an estate agent, growing market share and winning more instructions, and becoming more efficient, so increasing their profit margin.
So here's a sort of, not a left field comment, but a slight tangent then. What does good agency look like from your perspective as a proptech supplier who's come into this world to say, right, we're going to provide you with something that's going to make you a better agent, a good agent. What does a good agent look like? And give us an example. Who's a good agency you look at and go, do you know what? That's how it should be done.
Wow, that's a big question. Well, I'll give you the example of the agent that I used to sell my house, which was Location
Okay.
in Stoke Newington.
Yep.
I think they're a fantastic agent. They obviously use Street and Spectre.
Yep.
But aside from that, I think everything that they do is quality. But I think the big thing that good agents do right now is cater to the modern consumer experience, which I would say most agents don't do.
Okay, interesting.
That's just my
Expand on
two-penny.
that then.
So, for example, most people nowadays don't want to be answering the phone in the middle of the workday. Most people expect to be able to do things from their mobile phone. They expect to be able to do it 24/7. They expect to be able to self-serve when they want to self-serve. So, for example, if I was to sell my house now, I'd want to go online next to my husband, so at, 9 o'clock at night, select the agent, book a valuation there and then on the website. Most agents don't allow you to do that. Most agents will make you fill in a form at best and then hope for a phone call back to book that valuation in. That's not a modern consumer experience. Why introduce friction into that process? It's mad to me.
You're thinking about it from your perspective as an agent. You're not thinking about it from the
get that a
consumer
lot.
perspective.
Well, we want to get them on the phone because we can tease things out of them. Do that as well. Get them on the phone afterwards, but let them do what they want to do.
Follow-up, isn't it?
Yeah. You don't need to cut anything out, but just, I think there's right now a really interesting shift, which is quite unique, where you've got maybe Dorises of the world who probably don't even have an email address. You need to cater to them. You've got people who still definitely do want to speak on the phone all the time, and that's their preferred method. But you've also got a massively growing demographic here, which is only going one way, where picking up the phone terrifies them. I think Claire spoke about this on your...
This is exactly what I was just about to say, is you're mirroring what Claire Yates said, which is, why on earth are you phoning somebody at 9:15 in the morning? It's like, well, because that's the best time for me to phone. So who cares what's the best time for you to phone? When you're at 9:15 in the morning, do you want an estate agent phoning you to see how you got on at the weekend? No, pick a time that suits them. But actually, you're providing that additional level of assistance to the agent or the consumer, in that, well, I can provide feedback at any point.
Yeah, I think you've got to cater to how they want to communicate with you, not how you want to communicate with them. And also, people want transparency. They want to be able to pick up their phone and see how their move is going and feel like they've got some control and visibility, really, over what's going on. So I think good estate agency is now catering to that.
Yes.
And making sure that they are using modern tech to do the admin stuff, but also still providing a very personal service as and when that is required and wanted.
Personal being the ultimate key, isn't it, really? Because what's really interesting is, since we started 3/4 of a mile ago, we've not talked about houses. Have we? Not once. We've talked about tech, of course, but actually, ultimately, what all this is the people journey. And we had a young lad come to us the other day who was flirting with the idea of going into property in some description. He looked good in a shuffle. He spoke with the right accent, in inverted commas. So he ticked a lot of the country, But not once did he mention the properties. And so when we talked to him, and it wasn't really an interview. It was like, do you want to come to us for a few hours and have a chat and see what we're about and see if there's something that might be of interest to you when you're ready. And what really impressed us is that, the houses are given. Of course we do houses. We're an estate agency. But actually what I really love is dealing with people and helping them solve their problems. So you have, again, inspired by mums, dads, uncles, aunts, cousins, the dog, everybody in your life has run a business of some description or been involved in that world, and you were inspired to do that. But what is it about being an entrepreneur, first of all, that appealed to you the most? What was it that was, do you know what? I just want to go and do my own thing. What was it?
That's a really good question. I honestly think it's growing up with two parents as entrepreneurs. I think that this is something that's actually really important to me, because particularly for women, they often, that saying, you need to see it to want to be it. Well, because I grew up with a mum who had her own business and was an entrepreneur, I just think I always wanted to be it. And sometimes I look at my friends, and it's so interesting how many of us have mirrored our own mums. And that's why I think it's really important for, women to be in these positions, so other women look and think, I could be that.
To be inspired by it.
Yeah. But to be honest, my mum absolutely, and dad, love what they did, loved it. So, we'd go on holiday. There's no single holiday I think I've ever been on when I wasn't in some sort of estate agency at some part of that holiday.
Well, they visited whilst on holiday.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like...
Not one of those tapping the windows.
Yeah, exactly. So I think when you see two parents who love what they do, you're inspired by that. And when I was at KPMG, I did it and I learnt a lot, but I wouldn't say I loved it.
Yeah.
So it was wanting to...
Because I think the world is rammed full of people who enjoy what they do, that don't realise that they could really love what they do if they just tweaked a few things.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to love what I did as much as I guess I saw other people loving what they did. And I think that was the draw to entrepreneurship for me. It wasn't really anything else other than a real passion for it.
Yeah. So what is there that's different then with being an employee versus someone who runs their own business? What do you have to go through as an individual to make that shift in terms of mindset? Because it's not just a case of, I'm running late, I've got to be in by 9. And it's not like, right, 5:30, pub. It's not that, is it? So what is it? What did you have to go through? What do you think it takes to go from that mindset of employed to self-employed or business owner?
I think the first step is an appetite for a little bit of risk. I think there's a hell of a lot of people that have good ideas, who dream about it and don't do it because they're too scared of what would go wrong. And don't get me wrong, I'm fully aware of my privilege with being able to do it, because worst case scenario for me, I thought I can move in with my mum if I lose my house. I'm not going to lose everything. And so I do recognise that actually that in itself makes taking risks easier.
Yes.
But I also think accepting that, you might fail, and, I think a lot of people are scared of what if I fail and how will that be perceived. And a friend of mine at the time said something to me like, what would you do if nobody knew that you would fail? And I was like, it's true. I'd just do it.
Yeah.
And I also had the thought of there's very few things in life that are undoable. Even KPMG, I handed in my notice and they said, well, why don't you take a career break? And I thought, I can go back and do that if this doesn't work. And I'll have lost a bit of money and I'll have lost a bit of
everything's
pride.
temporary if you make it temporary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Apart from having a child.
Yes, quite.
So I had definitely had that mindset, and I think I had an appetite for risk that I think probably a lot of people wouldn't. And then it was just put in the graft. I mean, God, the hours that me and Tom did at the start were insane. We'd be there writing those letters, because we carried on handwriting letters because it worked so well for so long. And then I remember one of the big decisions was, shall we buy an envelope stuffing machine? And Tom drove all the way to Preston to pick it up because we bought it on eBay. But we were there at like midnight with cramp in our hands. And I think it's that sort of thing, which is you just have to.
It's graft, isn't it?
You just have to put it in. And there were some days when, God, during COVID, I think we averaged about 5 hours sleep a night because everything was just awful, and we're trying to rewrite the rules.
And I suppose when that hit then, when COVID hit, did you find that, because where was the business then when COVID hit?
Pretty good size, I can't remember the exact number of team members, we had maybe 50 or so.
Wow.
Yeah. And
So it
then
really was a good
suddenly
size at that point.
all remote, and trying to decide what do we do about our clients, waiting for other proptech providers to make the first move, like Rightmove, what they were going to do. It was horrible. It was horrible. But I'm really proud of the fact that we actually, at one point, we just thought we can't wait for anybody else. Let's just go out with our own communication. So we were the first to go to our clients and say, look, we're going to drop everything, drop your fees. We're going to support you as much as possible. And then obviously lots of others followed. Cheers.
Morning.
But yeah, that was a tumultuous time.
It was a little bit, wasn't it? Yeah, we've talked about this a couple of times along this towpath now, but I think what's really interesting is that sort of you were not in a situation like we were as agents sitting there going, well, what the hell are we going to do? The market's going to crash.
Yeah.
You were sitting there going, well, hang on a minute, we could either continue and it's fine by us because, agents are still paying their fees, so it makes no odds to us. Or you could turn around and say, well, do you know what? We can make the difference here. We can be the good guys.
Yeah.
So, the bike, busy day today.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It's some nice weather, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? They're all out. And Friday, of course, as well, isn't it?
Yeah. It was very much like it was very unknown at the time.
Okay.
But we thought, got to just do the right thing. Obviously, as well, our parents were still agents and we could see how hard it was for them. And we just thought, how far can we push ourselves without collapsing our own company to support our clients? And that's what we did.
Okay. So what do you do? What is it now then that really, if we were to sit there and go, right, you can answer this with one specific answer, what is it that really motivates you? What is it that gets you absolutely driven and focused, and what is it that gets you not gets you out of bed in the morning, because we all know what that is. It's obviously, you drive, you do that, but what is it?
Cheers.
What is it? What's the thing? What's your one thing?
Do you know what? It's oh God, it's a bit of a weird word to say, but winning. Like, I like the...
So you're quite competitive?
Yeah, I'm super competitive.
Is that because of when you played at Manchester United?
Ah, God. How did
You didn't think I'd know about that, did you? You can thank Tom at Deverell Smith who dropped that into the conversation.
I did play a lot of sport growing up.
So you were very competitive because of your sport, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's because of the sport or maybe I was good at sport because I was competitive. I don't know.
Okay.
Or maybe it's because I've got two brothers and two step siblings and a half. I don't know. But yeah, super
Was it one bowl on the table at night time? If you don't eat it, you don't get it first, you don't get it.
Exactly. Who knows? Yeah, very, very competitive. But I think there's also something really fulfilling when you build something and then it makes people's lives easier and they love it and you get the feedback. That is...
It's quite
really
a powerful
cool.
motivation,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's really cool. And, when we meet agents and they say like, oh, I've just implemented this and oh my God, I got 10 instructions off the back of it. It's like, yes, that's amazing. And sometimes you go to a big, potential client meeting, you come back and you're absolutely buzzing. There's no better feeling in the world. It must be like scoring a goal. But that genuinely is what motivates me. I'm not very money motivated. So it's not that gets me up in the morning. It's just enjoying my job. Do you know what as well? We've got an amazing team. Like, I love the people that I work with. Every day when I go into the office, we have a laugh. People take the piss out of me, I take the piss out of them. It's just a nice vibe. And that just makes every day fun.
Here's a question. Do you have your own office?
Within the office? No, I sit at a hot desk, so I sit with everybody else.
There's a lot in that answer you've just given.
In what way?
Well, it's not ivory tower territory, is it?
No.
Because if you are motivated in the way that you're motivated, and let's say you're not, and I think what you said just now in terms of I'm not driven by money, because this ultimately comes down to lead lag measures and how we measure our business and what we measure success by. If we are motivated, as I understand it, all the books I've read, if we're motivated by money and only focus on the end result and the money, it's never going to be there. We're never going to catch up with it because there's a margin in front of you that always pushes it forward. And it depends on how you measure success, isn't it? So it's that, isn't it? It's that sort of, if I'm genuinely motivated to help people, that becomes palpable. And people within your team will pick up on that, especially if you're sat in amongst them within them. So you not being in an ivory tower dishing out orders on various Slack channels going, do this, do that, do the other, then surely they feel that they're with you rather than working for you.
Yeah, I enjoy going to work every day, and part of that is one of our operating principles is we have fun at work. And I would never want an office environment that was sterile or people didn't feel like they could have a laugh. You know, I love it when I look around the office and there's like laughter everywhere and people having a good time, because you spend so much of your time at work. The thought that people might come in and not look forward to it or be like, oh God, another day, just fills me with ugh.
When we came to see you a couple of weeks ago, the feedback, there was 4 of us that were there, and the feeling, the sense of, we felt a little bit uplifted as we left, because that atmosphere was such that there was clear focus and determination about what they want to do. But that level of enthusiasm, that sense of, it was fun being where they are. And I work closely with Anna in your team in Spectre, who's
great.
just fab. She's brilliant. But you can always tell that she's always very happy. And that's infectious.
Yeah.
And that belief structure that your team have to a client like us, who in the proptech world, there's a lot of believers, but that tends to be the business owners, not the people who work within. And there's a lot of people who go from proptech to proptech to proptech to proptech. But how do you retain those people?
Which is an interesting point, actually, because I think one of the things that makes it a lot easier for us to do that and be like that is because we have the best products on the market.
Yes.
I can't imagine.
Morning.
I can't imagine trying to foster that when we all secretly know that somebody out there has got a better product.
And I suppose this is what comes back to what we did discuss earlier before we started recording, is that if you do a product reveal like you turned around a few weeks ago or months ago, or how many years, I don't know how long ago was it? It feels like forever and yesterday, doesn't it?
Yeah. We were the first people to do that, and now every proptech company's doing product reveals, and I'm like, guys, it's gone.
Yeah, we've done it.
Yeah,
we beat you to it, so you can't best that. Yeah. But you know, when you've got, which was done very well, by the way. But when you do that, and you know damn well that most of your audience is going to be your competitors, everybody else will catch up. But your competitors are the ones who really want to know what you're up to. It's that Simon Sinek infinite game territory, isn't it? You know, who's watching what who's up to. Do you focus what your competition are up to, or do you focus on what you're up to?
No, we focus on what we're up to.
So how do you benchmark and measure?
I honestly think that if you focus on what your competitors are doing, firstly, it takes your eye off the ball with what you want to do, but also it's a very dangerous thing to do, because the way we build stuff is from first principles. So take it right back to what does this feature, what do you want it to do, what do you want it to achieve for agents, and how is the best way to design that? If you look at something else and the way something's done, you might iterate on it or change it slightly, but I think you need to have the fresh mindset. Start from scratch when you're designing that.
Yeah.
Talk to agents. So we have product teams that go out and they spend time with all sorts of agents of different sizes.
So you don't just come up with a clever idea and go, let's just do it. You go out and you research the hell out of it.
No, they have to go into estate agents. They speak to them. Focus groups. We have Street Labs, which has got about 75 agents part of that, feeding in. We test it, so we have user experience and user interface teams who work on all of this stuff. But I honestly think if we were looking at some of the incumbents and thought, okay, let's get inspiration for there, we wouldn't have anywhere near the product. So a lot of people say to us, oh, have you seen X, Y, Z? And I'm like, genuinely, no.
Wow.
And funny enough, we do an employee engagement survey every half, so once every 6 months. And one of the questions in there is, I believe that the company has the best products on the market. And 98% of people in our business said yes to that.
They believe it.
Yeah, not even neutral, just yes. And then the one person that did add a comment say, I've only just started, so I don't know. Hi.
Morning.
Hello. You narrating?
Yeah, it should be, shouldn't we?
So yeah, I think that makes it very easy to be like that as an organisation, because you know, you come into work and you know you've got the best products on the market. It makes it easier to build. It makes it more fun to design and build those products, easier to sell. It just, I can't imagine trying to create that atmosphere if people didn't believe that. I think it makes it 10 times different. And not every product can be the best on the market. I just think, thankfully, ours.
No, exactly. Yeah, that's it. And it's not about USP. It's just about And again, having got the opportunity or the ability to start from scratch, it's not just about drawing on a piece of paper, is it? You're approaching it from such a very different perspective that you are genuinely engaged in what is the best solution for your client, but you can only do that if you go to them and ask them.
Yeah.
And not necessarily sit there, because
We ask them,
but
and
you
we get their feedback, but we
there's
don't
probably 100
necessarily
different,
design exactly what agents tell us to do. Again, we take it back to first principles. Sometimes, you don't know what you don't know. And if agents have used a certain bit of software for the last 20 years, they're going to be focused on how it currently does it, but actually there could be a better way of doing it. So we would take the feedback, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we'll build it exactly.
So it's
how they
consolidate that feedback, work out the sort of best potential answer that's within your power to do so, and if it's not within your power, then you try and damn well make sure it is.
Yeah. And you'd be amazed at how many different ways agents work. A lot of agents say, I work differently to other agents, and at first I used to think it was a bit of a cliche.
I think we all do, don't we?
But
We all
no,
say
it's
that,
not
don't
a cliche. Yeah, agents do work differently.
Yeah.
They have different processes, different ways of working. What's absolutely imperative to one agent, another agent would be like, I'd never use that feature in a million years.
Yeah.
And you're like, fair enough. So the way that we've built Street is extremely...
So it's difficult to be one size fits all for you then,
You
isn't
can't,
it?
yeah. So Street is extremely customizable in settings. So the way one agent has Street will be massively different to the way Street looks like for another agent. And it's all to do with settings and configurability and features turned on and off. And we're actually building a lot of customizable stuff in there at the moment. So
Wow.
very, very
I
cool.
look forward to seeing that come
Yeah.
through. Final question then.
Yeah.
What is your controversial opinion on all things? And it could be anything to do with the world that we're talking about.
Okay.
Proptech, estate agency, estate agents, anything influential, anything that contributes to it. What is your one controversial opinion that you don't share very often that is now going to be out in the world?
Okay, I am going to say, I think it's controversial because I think most agents would disagree with what I'm about to say, but I still think that estate agency technology is 5 to 10 years behind pretty much every other B2C industry.
Okay, you're going to have to elaborate on that because we're all sitting there trying to hold on for dear life and keep up with you all, but go on.
Yeah, I think you'd be hard pressed to find another B2C industry that predominantly, and I'm not talking about street clients here because obviously they're different, but that predominantly communicates with clients via phone calls and emails.
Okay.
I think it's borderline archaic the way that such a big process for a consumer happens, and it's relying on an agent calling them, maybe emailing them, maybe WhatsApping them. On the whole, that is not a modern way of communicating, and it's certainly not meeting modern consumer expectations.
So give us an example of an industry that has got it right then, and where we should be looking.
You could take even something as archaic and bureaucratic as banking. How many? You've got a banking app, presumably. Do you do everything on your app, or do you walk into a branch?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
only when the app doesn't work. So we shout at someone.
But if your bank took away that app, would you switch banks?
I suppose the difficulty is that it's become something that we're so used to, isn't it?
Yeah, and so few estate agents offer
I'd go to another bank that has a better app.
Yeah, so would I.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine going. I don't think I've been into a bank branch for God knows how long. But anyway, yeah, I think apps are hugely important, and they're the way that modern consumers expect to be able to do things these days. 24/7, book in a valuation from their phone. Accept a viewing request from a push notification. Yes, accepted. Nobody wants to be answering a phone in the middle of the day to say, confirm, yeah, that's fine, you can book that viewing for that time.
So how many years behind did you say we were?
I think five-ish years behind.
That's a massive amount of time in the world of tech.
Yeah. And I'll tell you why I think it is.
And that's because of adoption rather than the tech being available, or?
So my theory as to why it is because estate agency is unique as an industry in that it's still very hyper-local. So what's happened in other B2C industries is huge consolidation. You've got a handful of massive players and or mostly massive players and a very few small players. Whereas in estate agency, we're unique because, so for example, the best person to sell my house, if it was in Worsley, is my dad. He is the best person. That's not me being biased as his daughter. No, it's not. Genuinely, he's done it for 30 years. He knows that market inside out. He knows every single house. He knows every single mine shaft that's got coal mines. He's the best person. And so that's why independent businesses still do very well in our industry. But what they don't have the ability to do is spend millions upon millions of pounds building technology and apps and their own tech. So estate agents are reliant on their technology providers to innovate for them and to offer tech that meets modern consumer expectations. And up until recently, that's not been an option. That's not me saying most estate agents don't know that they need that. I actually think...
because it's clearly an awareness, isn't there? Yeah.
Most agents are aware. Yeah. Most agents know that they need to be offering that sort of service and doing those sorts of things. I was actually interviewed on a tech podcast recently. Okay. And one of the questions they said to me was, do you find you have to educate agents in terms of, mobile first technology and apps? And I'm just like, absolutely not. Agents know.
We know how to do it.
Yeah,
we're consumers as well as just agents.
They know what they want. They know what they should have. It's just that up until recently, it wasn't available to them.
And do you think we've not been able to translate that sort of what we want versus what the customer might want into that?
It sounds like I'm doing a massive pitch for street now, and I'm not. But when we show street, we're not on a demo. We're not saying, and modern consumers will really like the app because they'll be able to do this. They see it and they're like, oh my God, yeah. They know that that's what their clients would love. On the whole, don't get me wrong, street still works for the people that, the Dorises of the world. But I think that is a big thing, and I think we are behind in this industry. I often say, if you pick someone who's never sold a house before, just pick somebody from like a generation below and say, how do you imagine
that's quite interesting,
the process would work with an estate agent? How do you imagine you kept up to date with your move? They will describe what you're probably doing, but certainly not what the vast majority of agents do at the moment. They're not going to be like, I presume I just wait for a phone call.
The app is just a game changer. It really, for us, from our perspective, and especially dealing in the market we're dealing with, which is the upper quartile, where there is a slight reluctance on tech, or there's a slight lack of awareness on tech, to have that tool or that ability that actually, once there's a first hurdle of, which is majority up here in terms of the hurdle, rather than the ability to
I think you're wrong on that, by the way.
Oh, go on.
Top quartile people, particularly, you're talking 50 to 70, the people whose homes you're selling are the people who are embracing tech the most. They are the people that are highly successful, time short, who do not want to be answering a phone call in the middle of the day. They're the people that want a push notification to say you've got a viewing request from Chartwell Noble. Click here for yes.
Yeah.
They're those people. So
50 to 70, I'd say you were right, but there's a lot over 70.
Over 70, fine. I'll give you that. But that demographic, obviously, it's all shifting one way.
It is a little. Yeah.
Do you know that over 90% of people under the age of 30, who granted are not our demographic right now, but over 90% of those people will not pick up a phone call. And something like, I can't remember the exact percentage, but under 50, let's say it's 50%, won't answer a phone call to a number that they don't have saved.
That's
so if you're an estate agent and you're relying on phone calls to grow your business, it's unsustainable and your business will suffer in the short to medium term. Yeah. So that's the, I guess, controversial opinion that I hold, and I think things are changing very, very quickly. And agents who don't adopt mobile apps. Oh, and one real bugbear I have about mobile apps, whilst we're on it, an app. An app, as we all know, an app is a native app, one that you download from the App Store or the Play Store.
Yep.
It's not a mobile-first website. And the big difference, and I'd always push agents to challenge this, is you can't do push notifications on a mobile-first website. You can't...
Just explain what that is for those who don't know.
So a push notification is where, you get your phone and you've got an alert. If you want to get somebody to do something, you have to do a push notification. Otherwise, you're relying on them logging in, which they're just not.
So it's an app
do.
that is the shortcut to a website, isn't it? Essentially, what you're talking about is the other one.
Yeah. Not an app that's
There's
shortcut
no notification
to a website.
there.
No, you need an app that's downloaded from the App Store that's on somebody's phone that you
That's
can...
specifically designed to raise your attention
Exactly.
in the event that there's a notification.
Specifically designed to get you to do something. So if you want somebody to accept a viewing request, if you want somebody to view your valuation report, if you want somebody to know that they've just got an offer, all of that stuff, obviously you'd probably do offer with a phone call, but a push notification is the way to do it. Whereas if you're just relying on them logging in, they just won't do it. And the data supports
They need to be prompted or drawn,
into it. Yeah. It's like saying, imagine if you had WhatsApp and you just were relying on logging into it all the time to see if you had any messages. And that's the difference between a native app and a web app. and a native app is where the future is going. We have apps for everything in pretty much every industry.
And most of which are on my phone. I probably haven't logged into for God knows how long. But yeah, you're quite right. There are apps for everything, and it starts to streamline.
We've just released yesterday, I don't know if you saw it, the buyer ready stuff in Street. So
yeah, saw that.
Applicants can upload all their documents, proof of funds, all on the app. That saves you so much time and chasing, and it's a better experience for the applicant. Not to mention all the stuff the vendor loves.
And as you say, it's all shifting that way anyway, so you just want to try and be ahead of the curve, don't you?
100%. And if you're offering applicants a app experience and a tech-first experience, then, when they become vendors, who are they going to choose?
No, exactly.
So yeah, that's my controversial.
Controversial. Well, yeah, mildly controversial. We'll take that.
Okay.
Yeah. No, well done. Lovely. Thank you. Thank you for your honesty and openness.
Cheers. Thanks for inviting me.
It was very enjoyable. I think there's some really interesting stuff in there, and I think hopefully those who are watching and have got this far will take some really interesting stuff from it. Yeah. So no, thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time to come down, and enjoy the rest of your weekend, because you're going to have some fun, I think.
Cheers. Thanks very much. Thanks for inviting me. Cheers.